Alright, this is a Touhou Shoujo Tale of Beautiful Memories, also known as Super Touhou RPG. Game came out in 2017, came to the West a few years later. It is a doujin game. This might be able to tell is based on Super Mario RPG. This is a post-commentated run of my PV and also serves as my RPG Limit Break 2025 submission video. So first thing you do there is select the difficulty setting, which is normal. Higher difficulty settings just influence like enemy stats and all that, how many turns they get. And something to point out about this run is that it's also New Game Plus. The only two meaningful differences for New Game Plus is you can hold down a button to skip through all the text so you don't have to mash, and also you can take the protagonist Reimu out of the party, which enables some different strategies. And we're already at the first boss, which is Koishi. Koishi is just a very basic like tutorial boss. It's supposed to be like the Terrapin from Super Mario RPG. It's not impossible to lose. So something to mention about this game is much like the original Super Mario RPG, it also has timed hits and timed blocks. Time hits are pretty generous, probably like 5-6 frames or something, but time blocks, in order to take 0 damage from attacks, and you can perfect block everything in this game, including spells, except for like 1 or 2 attacks. The timing for a 0 damage block is quite low. I suspect it's like 1 or 2 frames. Anyways, so we're all going to the first dungeon. Storyline of the game is that the Touhous are up to some mischief, and Reimu's got to solve the incident. There's this giant explosion that happens, and Reimu and Koishi decide to team up to go investigate it. This is a bit of dialogue here. Reimu's talking about how she lost her ribbon and yin yang orb, which are 2 very powerful items that are taken away from you at the start. That's kind of the impetus for Reimu going on the quest at the beginning, is to try and find her precious items. In that chest, I picked up the revival potion, which is like a pick-me-up from Super Mario RPG. Revival potions in this game are very expensive, and a lot of the routing involves getting as many revival potions from chests as possible because it's actually needed for the strategy on the final boss. So here we pick up the first supplementary item, the magic circle, which enables different things in the overworld. By using the magic circle, you can hop on the little pad there and jump great heights. There I just picked up a hidden UFO, which is like the hidden chest from Super Mario RPG. Usually they just contain frog gems, but early on in the game they contain items that can be sold for more money. Here I'm actually dropping the very first safety save of the run for this jump, which is much tighter than it looks, and in order to get that spiritual capsule. Because the money routing for this game is actually extremely tight early on, but by the middle end of the run, the money route is basically meaningless. And here we're talking to Hakashia, a very important figure in the run. And right now we're like in the other world, just trying to escape because we got accidentally sucked in. And we're coming up in the second boss of the run, which will be Clown Piece. And she always opens up with this move, which is It's Lunatic Time. You can see here I did block the attack, and you can perfect block it, but the timing is quite tight. For a lot of these early game fights, it doesn't actually matter if you perfect block anything, or even just half block anything, really. As long as you time the attacks, it's fine. A lot of these early game fights will just come down to spamming physical attacks, but the variety and strategy gets a lot better later on. Much like in the real Super Mario RPG, it doesn't matter if a character is downed. At the end of a fight, they still get the same amount of experience. And also much like in Super Mario RPG, you can choose your level up bonus. I don't believe this game has a system where if you pick level ups on certain levels, you get more stats, like SMRPG. Here I'm just selling something in order to buy a Purification Rod, which is a somewhat strong weapon for Reimu early on. And we're already into the third boss, Kogasa. This one will be a lot like the previous boss who just attacked, so we'll probably talk about something else. The music in this game is actually all unlicensed, free to use, because the creator didn't want to make their own music. So if you've heard some of these songs before, it's just because they're in free use. Other stuff to talk about. This game was last patched in 2023. Middle of 2023, and it actually made the speedrun faster because it enabled the use of an item called the Stimulant, which is a berserk-inducing item able to be used by other characters. Previously it was self-target only. and that ends up being a very important strategy later on in the run. Here I'm protecting medicines, like the first mini game of the run. You just gotta take out some fairies. Speaking of which, taking out the fairies. So in this game, you can fire a talisman shot and take out enemies on the overworld just to get them out of your path. Here I was very confused about whether or not I wanted that chest. You don't get any experience or anything like that for taking out enemies on the overworld, unless there is a bomb active, which you'll see very soon here. But everything in this game happens pretty quickly, right? You pick up a chest, you just hold down the button, skip the text, and you just get in even less than a second. So if a chest is somewhat useful for the run, and it's not too far out of the way, I'll usually end up picking it up just because it takes so little time. Also, these blue gems I'm getting here are worth 5 currency each. Much like in the real SMRPG, you want to try and get money like that. And here's the first bomb, which is like the invincibility star from Super Mario RPG. Now that it's active, taking out these enemies actually does matter in terms of getting experience. This is a kind of a bad instance of this particular bomb. You want to make it a little bit further there in order to waste as little time as possible. And this is going to be an homage to the Croco chase from Super Mario RPG as well. You fight in the Hoppin' Flappin' crew, the 3 prankster fairies. No, I actually get caught there. You don't want that to happen. Sloppy. Yeah, you just talk them from behind. I'm also going to be using 3 spiritual capsules on Koishi in order to make sure she has 18 SP. In this game, each character does have their own MP value, unlike an SMRPG where it's shared across the party. And it's the first instance of Koishi using her Ancestors move, which is the only AoE attack you have access to for the first half of the game. And it's one of the best moves in the entire game. Not only is this the only AoE attack you have access to, it also has a chance of inflicting fear like you see there. And fear, much like in the original game, increases the amount of damage you do to enemies while decreasing their damage. And from the Ancestors move, it's just a random chance whether or not it lands. A big part of the random elements of the run is just how many fears land early on when you're still using Ancestors. That being said, there isn't a whole lot of variance in a lot of these early game fights. But as we make it to the middle and especially the end of the run, the random factors will play a significant role. We run to a frog, I think is his name. He gives us his first frog gem, which is like the frog coin from Super Mario RPG. It can be used to buy some powerful items. It's like a separate currency, much like an SMRPG. There's not a lot of frog gem gathering in this run, especially compared to older routes I came up with. Unlike in the real SMRPG where the frog coins are essential, especially for buying the XP booster. This will just be used to buy some Energizer equivalents, Power Blast equivalents, etc., just to make a few fights a little bit faster. Speaking of the routing, I should mention that, yeah, I basically routed this entire game by myself. LCC did provide some spreadsheets for the game after dumping all the information on the bosses, the weapons, and the items, things like that. And that was extremely critical to being able to construct a decent route for this game. This boss, Kokoro, is just another one we just use attacks only. And even if you fail to block the moves, it doesn't really matter too much. I'm also the only runner of this game other than Ockguard, who ran the game a few years back. Ockguard actually ran on a different version of the game, which allowed you to run with 65 FPS, which makes the run 7-8 minutes faster. But I kind of banned ever running on that version because it's just kind of bad. It makes the game look a little bit choppier, and I feel like you should always try and run the latest patch anyways. The latest patch also adds some nice quality of life features, which you can see right here actually. It makes the shopping menus a little bit cleaner. It has that little prompt that asks you how many you want to sell. There's a confirmation window for buying stuff, things like that. Speaking of which, in that menu, I sold a lot of the stuff I picked up early on in order to buy an offense bracelet, which increases a character's attack and special attack by 10 each. Because Koishi's gonna be doing a large majority of the damage early on with her ancestor moves, it's definitely worth it to go out of your way and buy an offense bracelet. As far as the story of the game goes here, the town's been taken over by the jumping crew, the jumping fairies. It seems like a lot of the characters in this game are acting strangely. It's because they're being influenced by a boundary shard that caused them to want to fight you. Here I go into an alley and pick up the wallet. Much like in the original SMRPG, you can return the wallet to a townsperson, but it's actually be better just to sell the wallet for more coins. Another frog gem here, and under that table I pick up an item called Aki's XXX, which increases special attack by 15, which is a very, very potent increase. And because Koishi's ancestor moves is considered a special attack move, like all magic is, you use the offense bracelet and Aki's XXX to do a lot of damage early on. This is Yomu. She's the Mac equivalent. There is no Mac skip in this game, unfortunately. I did try my best to find it. The only thing that really matters here is just using ancestors and hoping fear gets inflicted, which is a very high chance on Yomu. And yeah, that's it. So what else is there to talk about? Let's make our way to the next dungeon. You probably noticed the art style of the game at this point. It's a little bit unfortunate that the artist, well, the designer decided to do the art like this, because in terms of gameplay, this game is actually really good. It has a ton of content, it has a ton of mini games, it has like a ton of references to the original SMRPG. And the only kind of downside is the artwork of the game. There I was buying 2 power-ups, which is just the Energizer equivalent, much like actually in the original SMRPG. You just buy a few of those early on to speed up some boss fights. Here we're seeing Kazuzu run away into the other world. So the other world is, we'll be seeing this a lot at the end of the game, but it's kind of a prelude to what's actually going on in the story. And it's just kind of like the second main dungeon here. Next I'm picking up the switch, which is the second supplementary item. And the switch just lets you hit switches, pretty much. It's as simple as it sounds. While the switch is active though, you can't use it to take out enemies on the overworld. You do have to switch to something else, like the magic circle will just have nothing equipped. So if I want to take out enemies here, yeah, I'd have to switch over. The way the enemies work on the overworld is they always have fixed movement, unlike an SMRPG where it can vary a little bit. So whenever you see me like pause or stutter there, it's not because I'm trying to react, it's just because I haven't memorized the room yet. Alright, we're already into the next boss fight versus Kazuzu. She's trying to prove her strength, I believe is the storyline there. I do use the first power-up in this fight, just to kind of like guarantee a 2 round with ancestors. Otherwise it can get a bit messy. You can see on the input display in the bottom left, every single time I use the ancestors move, it's like Terrorize in SMRPG. You have to rotate the D-pad. This is a reference to the first frog coin you get in SMRPG, where you jump on Toad's head. You have to hold up right there to land on the Tori, otherwise you can't get that frog gem for a long time, so you always gotta remember to do that. And now we'll be making our way to the next dungeon, which is the Kappa dungeon. In order to know where you're supposed to go in this game, you're supposed to be talking to an NPC called Nazrin, or Noslin as she's known in this game. And she's kind of like the frog fuchsias of the game. She tells you where to go and how to investigate the boundary shards, which I think we'll officially learn about very soon here. This will be the next bomb of the run. This bomb is kind of like glitched. That you can sometimes get double or possibly even triple experience from taking out an enemy. I think it's just because some of the enemies you're taking out here are invisible. You're supposed to get an item later on which lets you see them. And I think just the way it's coded, it's just sometimes you get a lot of experience per enemy. but it doesn't really affect the route too much. But yeah, more experience is usually better in this game. Much like in the real Super Mario RPG, whenever you gain a level, your HP and SP is fully restored. And that's like factored into the routing to try and plan your level ups in order to get heals to avoid going into the menu and healing manually. And also that entire dungeon was a reference to the Kero sewers, as you probably imagined. Here I'm activating a switch off screen early. This will be the entrance to the bomb shop, which is very important in the run. And they won't be elemental bombs like SMRPG, but they will be status effect inducing bombs. And those bombs are actually needed to beat the final boss. This is a fight versus Manzai Raku. Much like a lot of the early game fights, it's just you use an Energizer and Koichi to power up, and you use Ancestors and hope to take them out. And you hope Fear lands, so you do more damage to the boss. This was actually a very good fight. Koichi will actually get taken away from the fight if it goes on for too long, much like how Malo is eaten by Below in the original game. And this is a reference to Midas River, Wine River, Midas Falls from the original SMRPG. Unfortunately, in this game, you don't even want to win the minigame. I'm intentionally hitting the rocks here to lower Reimu and try and get it over with as soon as possible. And usually I'll just like AFK here, go drink some water or something like that. Because yeah, even though you can collect these orange gems and turn them in for a frog gem later on in the game, as far as I'm aware, even if you do really well in the game, there's no NPC to turn in these orange gems to. So they just end up cluttering your inventory. So yeah, this is the only minigame like this where you intentionally try not to win. It definitely feels a bit weird to look at, right? Especially if you're used to watching original SMRPG runs where you basically want to win every minigame. What else is there to talk about here? In regards to the original Super Mario RPG, in case you're unaware, I did a lot of the routing for that game as well. I've even commentated that game at both a AGDQ and a Limit Break. So I kind of know a lot about the original as well, but not about the remake of SMRPG. That's I don't even own a Switch. That's don't ask me about that. What else to talk about? In terms of like marathon safety, because then this is also an RPG Limit Break submission video. The marathon route and the RTA route would not vary too much. Fortunately, you can save wherever you want in this game, right before a boss, if you so choose. Even you can't save in battle or anything, but it's very marathon safe. You'll never have to replay much of anything as long as you're dropping enough safety saves, and saving only takes like a few seconds, so it's a very marathon safe run. Also, there we got our first boundary star, which is like the star, the legendary, the seven legendary stars you're supposed to get in the original game. There's actually 12 of them, 12 MacGuffins in this one. And now we're fighting Tenshi. In this battle, you don't have to win, it's just faster to lose, so I'm doing untimed hits, intentionally not blocking. If you do win the fight, you get a little bit more experience, but only on Reimu, and a few more gems to work with, which can be kind of good, because, again, the money route is pretty tight in the beginning of the run. Here, Tenshi is talking about how she lost the Sword of Hiso, which is a very important item, and now she's trying to recover it, which is why she joins our team after we had our little fight. So by doing the Kero sewer sequence, I got access to the Kappa scope, which lets you see these invincible Kappa. That sound there is very loud. It's actually quite easy to modify the files in this game because I'm playing on PC. One of the things I meant to do was actually lower the volume of that one particular sound because it's just so much louder than everything else. I actually did lower one of these sounds for one of the main attacking moves in the game. I'll point it out when we get to it. It's about halfway through. And something else I could do, if need be, in order to help boost this game's chances of getting into Limit Break, would be modify the artwork of the game. If anything seems to be like a bit too much, it wouldn't be too hard to censor it or something like that. And that'll especially be the case for the final boss. There was just a short cutscene with Renosuke about how he found a tablet and how Kazuzu stole the tablet from him. And now we're fighting dolls. These dolls represent the Great Doll Empire led by Alice. Alice has also been corrupted by the Boundary Shard's influence, and it's up to the Touhou game to stop her. Not sure if this dungeon is a reference to anything in particular in SMRPG. There I mistimed a attack called the Sword of Kun with Tenshi. Normally the rock that appears is supposed to be much larger. Alright, now I'm going into this cave. This was the secret bomb shop I mentioned earlier. It's very fortunate you're able to hit that switch early, because in that chest is the Speedy Bracelet, which increases agility by 10, a very important item, because it would allow Koishi to go before most enemies and use her AoE attack, which will not only take out like minions and stuff before they can turn smaller enemies, but it also has a chance of inflicting fear at the very start of the fight, which allows you to do more damage. And as you might notice here, we're fighting a lot of dolls in order to get to the doll queen, Alice. I don't know why they made you fight so many dolls, but they did. So Koishi being able to go first here is extremely important. There is actually a Speedy Bracelet you can get a little bit earlier in the Kero sewers. Funnily enough, it's from where Pandorite is in the original game. You do have to do a small fight in order to get it, but for my timing, it's not worth it to take that route. It's better just to go here early. Or rather, to get into the bomb shop early, get the Speedy Bracelet. There actually we'll be revisiting the bomb shop later in order to actually buy some bombs. But right now, you don't have nearly enough money to buy the bombs you need for the run. And this hidden UFO is an item called the Kokeshi doll. I don't think it does anything except sell for a lot of money. And now we picked it up, we can sell it and do even more shopping. Actually unequip some of the characters because the armor doesn't really do too much and you just need the money, so you have to sell it there. I'm buying a talisman, another offense bracelet, some stimulants, some universal remedies, and the loving heart. The talisman will be Reimu's main weapon for most of this run until like the mid-late game. Also here I'm talking to medicine, which gives you a free heal. The talisman is very important because it does holy damage. There's a bunch of different elements in this game. Your standard like RPG affair. There's holy, there's dark, water, earth, fire, etc., etc. And a lot of bosses in this game are actually weak to holy elemental. So Reimu is a pivotal part with their talisman weapon in order to deal a lot of damage. The stimulant I mentioned earlier inflicts berserk. Universal remedy is like the able juice, and that'll be useful for clearing status effects. The Loving Heart's a weapon for Koishi, which is used in only one fight, which is Dark Elemental, used on a boss that's weak to Dark. And I think that was everything. Offense Bracelet I already talked about. Alright, so Kokuro's back. Kokuro's trying to prove she's the strongest versus Reimu. I think they're rivals or something. She inadvertently joined the doll army, so we're fighting her again. She'll be a recurring boss, who's probably been able to pick up on. And yeah, this is the first instance of using a Berserked Reimu. This boss is weak to holy as well. When a character is berserked, they deal 1.5 times as much damage. However, they cannot block. So you have to be careful they don't fall in battle. Like in some instances, you might have to heal them or things like that, but the damage increase is definitely worth it. This is another bomb, and this one is actually a very important one because you get like 3 levels from this one particular bomb. As you can see here, unlike in the original SMRPG, you can just reload a room to take out more enemies. And you get a lot more EXP by doing this compared to if you just, you know, progress normally. And you can fire unlimited times when you have the bomb active and stuff like that. You can see Koishi, Reimu, and Tenshi gaining a lot of levels here. Levels just increase your stats, as you might imagine, like pretty much any other RPG. The main thing you want, though, with experience is abilities. There's some very critical abilities that you need to get in order to save a good amount of time. So while the stat increases are nice, yeah, it's not nearly as much as gaining certain abilities to use. I don't know why I'm talking to a doll there, it's not required. Alright, now to the Alice fight. This will be the first and I believe last instance of the super jump equivalent move, the mysterious FSM. So super jumps. Here I'm just doing it in order to get a little bit more damage because if you take out Alice in each phase... Oh, so Alice is supposed to be the Punchinello equivalent of the game, as you'll see very shortly here. I do a certain amount of super jumps in order to get the right damage needed to advance to the next phase. And she's gonna do something funny here. But talking about super jumps, you can in fact do 100 super jumps and get the super suit and attack scarf equivalents, but there's no good boss that you can actually super jump on in this game. And also, super jump timing I feel is much more difficult than in the original SMRPG or the remake, so it's currently not in the RAD. However, it wouldn't surprise me if it was faster, if you could do it consistently, but it's not like this absolute core item like it is in the other two games. So this route will not be getting the super suit equivalent. Anyways, this boss, this boss always leads with the sandstorm equivalent from SMRPG, which has a chance of inflicting fear. Which is one of the reasons why you buy the Universal Remedy, the Evil Juice equivalent, in order to cure the fear. And Alice gets the Boundary Shard, and also by talking to this door, I get the Cursed Decoy Doll, which is an item that lets you tank a hit, which will be pretty important for 2 fights, especially because, you know, if a character is berserk, they can't block, so having an item that can tank a hit for you is pretty good. And now we're on to the next boss, Rumia. Rumia always opens with this darkness attack, but the darkness is also inflicted on her, funnily enough. Similar strategy to the second Kokoro fight. I'll be curing Rumia's darkness, otherwise she has a low chance of hitting, and then inflicting Berserk. And then we're going to take out Rumia. In battle, I'm sure you probably noticed by now, it works very similar to the original SMRPG. There's 4 buttons you press, which determines your item, whether or not you guard, whether or not you attack, whether or not you use magic. Now we're into the next area, which I believe is foot of Yokai Mountain. Yeah. Going into a canyon here. This is supposed to be like Land's End from SMRPG in terms of like the cannons and stuff. By defeating Alice and curing her of her desire to be the Doll Queen, she gave us her gunpowder, which lets you go in the cannons. Otherwise, you can't actually progress with this area. This game's a little bit open world in terms of the order in which you choose to do things, but for the most part, it's kind of linear. That Rumia boss I fought can actually be fought a little bit later. And that did used to be the route, but it was just a little bit faster, like world map movement-wise, to fight her at that point. And he'll be fighting the next boss, which is Aki. Shizuo Aki, I think is her name. She's the painting Touhou. She's trying to color all the trees autumn to have an eternal autumn or something. This boss is kind of interesting because after every round of attack, she'll draw a new enemy, which serves as like a bodyguard for the main boss. So by using Koishi's AoE attack, I'm actually targeting all 3 things at once, and that just does a lot of damage to the bodyguard. And that allows me to attack the main part of the boss. You can actually destroy the canvas as well. But then the boss powers up and does some pretty powerful physical attacks. It is like 7 to 8 seconds faster, I think I timed it, but then you have to actually be good at perfect blocks, which are a tight timing window. And also, you won't be able to get an item after the battle by talking to the canvas, which is the red leaf hair clip, which increases all of your stats by 5, and it's like the best headpiece you have access to for a lot of the game. Anyway, she gave us another boundary shard. She's no longer evil. I'm going to talk to this Touhou, and she gives us a seed, which will allow us to escape a boss before the Scarlet Devil Mansion. At this point, I'm backtracking to the human village, which is supposed to be the Mushroom Kingdom from SMRPG, in order to recruit an optional character, which would be Nitori Kawashiro. Nitori is probably the most important character in the entire speedrun. She is mostly just a utility character, but her utility is essential for completing this run quickly. And like I've theorized a route that skips Nitori because this entire detour takes like about a minute and a half, but I just don't see it happening. And I'll point out why she's so good as it comes up. I seem very confused at which move I want to use. Her opening up with that bubble move is also scripted. It has a chance of inflicting recoil, which skips a character's turn if they're inflicted with it. This game has a lot of different status effects, much like Super Mario RPG. There's a recoil, there's a petrify, which comes out not in the speedrun. I didn't even know it was a status effect in the game until recently. Yeah, there's rage, there's sleep, there's confusion, fear, like you've already saw. There's a ton of cool stuff in this game. I should mention that this game was made in Wolf Editor, I believe is the name of it, which is like an RPG Maker type program. And that's how I was able to extract all the files and all that for editing purposes, to like lower the sound or possibly even change the art. That's also how LCC got all the information for his spreadsheets. Anyways, we're fighting Churnon.yose now. This is another pretty easy fight. Lore here is that they're playing a prank on us, so we gotta prank them. Lore for Nitori is that she was coming up with a device to find the boundary shards, because the boundary shards give you like immense power, and then we like forced her to join our party after we took her out. And now we're doing another bomb to get more levels. Again, it's very fortunate that the enemies on the overworld don't move around too much, or they have like, you know, fixed patterns, and also they don't move around too much. Otherwise, the EXP routing in this game would be pretty tricky. By doing that bomb, Nitori just learned the Kappa Wave ability, which is the Gina Boost equivalent in this game, which will boost attack and defense. Did I say Nitori? I meant Tenshi. You actually do get Kappa Wave earlier, but the reason you're doing that bomb is to get High Spirited Sword for Tenshi, which is like just a regular attack boost, doesn't boost both things. Also, we just gave that seed to Yuka, which allows us to climb over the gate and skip the fight with Mei Ling. Yuka is kind of like the gardener from Super Mario RPG. She needs the seed and the fertilizer in order to give you cool stuff. Lazy Shell and all that is in this game as well. Lazy Shell equivalents. Anyways, we're in the Scarlet Devil Mansion now. Romelia Scarlet said that Mei Ling picked up a boundary shard and we have to make it to the top of the tower in order to get it. The Scarlet Devil Mansion is supposed to be Booster's Tower from Super Mario RPG, in case you can't tell. Some of the enemy dodges in this game are a little bit tricky. Behind that curtain, you can become a 8-bit Raymo. Thought about making that a potential donation incentive, because it's kind of funny, actually, to show off. And as we climb the Scarlet Devil Mansion, you have to avoid fighting the Flandre clones. You see right there. Those battles are inescapable, and they take like 45 seconds, a minute to do. Definitely don't want to do that. I would actually sometimes save at the start of this dungeon just in case I ran into a Flandre clone. The lore is that Flandre is like accidentally multiplying herself, and Romelia is trying to figure out how to solve it. That is a mistake. You don't want to fall off there. God, that happened to me. I tried to like learn some of the rooms in this game, but I ended up just focusing a lot on the routing. Like in terms of like the boss fights, what items you get, the money route, things like that. As is typical for me, like, you know, actually moving through the rooms and optimizing stuff like that kind of took a back seat. I would definitely try and find like more real strats for some of these rooms for the game to get into a marathon. Anyways, we took this huge detour in order to get one singular item, which is the Gem of Beryllium. The Gem of Beryllium is like pretty much the most important item you get for the first like 80% of the run or so. It's kind of like the Troop Pin equivalent for Super Mario RPG, and that's an automatic 1.5 times attack boost for whatever character it's equipped to. However, that character also takes 1.5 times as much damage, so you have to be very good at blocking in order to use it effectively. But yeah, the Gem of Beryllium is just equipped to whoever you want to do a lot of damage with. So even though it took like 30 seconds or something to get that item, it's just extremely important. Alright, we made it to the end of the Scarlet Devil Mansion dungeon. No encounters so far, I believe. And now we get to do the curtain game from Super Mario RPG. Doesn't take quite as long. I believe in Super Mario RPG Remake speedruns, they're actually just fighting Booster these days, right? I timed fighting Flandre here, it was not faster. By completing this current minigame, I'll get access to Flawn's Charm, which is kind of like the amulet equivalent. It'll be used to boost attack stats. Not only the attack stat, but also the critical stat. Unlike in Super Mario RPG, there is a critical hit stat, and that ends up being very important in the mid and late game, how many critical hits you get. And even just small increases in the critical stat will amount to large increases in the amount of criticals you'll get. I don't actually know the exact formula. There's still like a lot of unknown stuff about this game because it is just a Dojin game. And, you know, again, LCC dumping the stats and all that helped a lot, but I haven't like gone through the game in the Wolf editor to see like all the secrets and all that. All right. First party change of the run, also first safety save other than for the first jump. This is the first like kind of tough boss fight. So Rainbow's now out of the party, and you'll be seeing Nitori instead. Nitori has water damage, and the Scarlet Devil Sisters here are weak to water. Whether or not Fear lands on the Scarlet Devil Sisters here is probably the first meaningful instance of Ramness. And also that water bubble that Nitori just used has a chance of inflicting recoil, which will let you skip their turns. The sisters here, as far as I'm aware, don't really have scripted attacks. I was kind of unsure about what to do there, whether I should heal or go for a Sword of Kun in order to inflict recoil. I got a double fear off that Ancestors there, which is extremely good. Also, this fight is supposed to be Knife Guy, Great Guy from the original Super Mario RPG. So they're teaming up there. You can, the block timing on that attack is actually kind of generous, the perfect block timing. There's a few moves in this game where if you just block it at all, you'll take 0 damage. There is no half block, but I missed and had to use a revival potion. And every revival potion you use is important because you kind of have to go out of your way to get them. Because in order to buy revival potions from the shop, it costs a lot of money, so you want to avoid that. But overall, the fight was fine because Fear landed, so I was just doing a lot of damage. And here we see a black star that comes out of Flandre, different from the boundary shards. Although we do get a boundary shard right after. The black star is something that will come up in the story towards the end. It's a reference to the true perpetrator behind the crimes that's caused this huge rift in the boundary, this other world appearing, things like that. Anyways, after climbing Scarlet Devil Mansion, we decided to go back to the shrine and rest up. And now, you're supposed to go to the human village and realize that something is amiss there. And that arrows are flying and hitting the residents of the human village, causing them to stand in place. But we already knew that by talking, by just having advanced knowledge. So now we'll be going to the Bamboo Forest of the Lost, which is like the forest maze from Super Mario RPG. So here, this is very embarrassing, don't watch. I actually do get lost in the maze, and I don't even realize initially, I'm just going the wrong way. I get very, very confused and have to reset the dungeon, the area. I was just like not paying attention at all, and thought I was in a different spot. It's obviously not randomized or anything. But that's probably the first like really embarrassing mistake of the run. I mean, I focused so much on the routing, the fights, and the menus and things like that. I forgot to practice moving on the overworld. But anyways, don't worry about that. I'll never get lost again. Then you make it into this inner area. This is not as maze-like. And you have to go stop the perpetrator behind the arrows. If you know anything about the Touhou lore, you know is Aaron. Who will be the Boyer equivalent once we get to her. But next up is Raisin. So Raisin always opens up with a confusion attack. The only way I know how to block this is by using an audio cue. It's pretty much the only audio-based thing I really need in the run. So even though I got very lost here, I actually had a pretty lucky fight with Fear landing and recoil happening to skip her turn, which kind of made up for the fact I got so lost in the maze. Raisin's just trying to stop us from getting to Aaron. I forget if she's also made crazy about the boundary shards, or she's just trying to protect her master. If you don't talk to Raisin there and just progress, You get into like this infinite hallway where you can't escape, so you just equip the caposcope to see through her invisibility and fight her a little bit early. A lot of these strategies will end up being kind of similar in that you use Tenchi for the attack boost, so she does more damage. You have the Gem of Beryllium on Koishi now, I believe, which gives her the automatic attack boost. Yeah, and sometimes I'll be going into the menu and healing with Reimu, so I can go into boss fights at full HP. And sometimes, yeah, I'll be going to the menu to restore SP on certain characters as well. Alright, now it's the fight versus Aaron. She always opens up with this Arrow Storm move. This is another fight where landing Fear early is extremely important. I do land it first try, so if you land that, you're basically just guaranteed a good fight. And now I'm able to use a Stimulant on Koishi, and she has the Loving Heart equipped, which is a Darkness Elemental. Aaron's weak to dark. So you end up doing a lot of damage here. So much like the actual Boyer, she throws down the symbols, and she tries to lock your buttons. But if Fear lands, it's really not that big of a deal at all. To use physicals instead of specials. Especially with an enraged Koishi dealing a lot of damage. Now she's no longer crazy. She's like, oh, I just want to try my acupuncture arrows, I think is the lore there. And thus another incident is resolved. A minor incident in the overall scheme of the grand incident that's happening. There's the next character recruited, which is Raisin herself. Raisin is unused in the speedrun. However, she has two very important pieces of equipment when she joins, which is the uniform, which is an armor that increases special attack, and the bunny ears, which is a headpiece that increases agility. And I've theorized a route that skips recruiting Raisin and just not using those items, but I don't think it's worth it. Alright, now it's time for another bomb. We're now under a dungeon that was constructed under Reimu's shrine that she was unaware of. So now she's going there to investigate what's happening there. What else is there to talk about that's kind of important? There's a ton of like secrets and mini games in this game, much like in the original Super Mario RPG, that are unexplored. Oh, that's what the first encounter of the run. I think I was just too close to an enemy when the bomb wore off. I was able to run away pretty easily. And encounters don't really cost too much time. The runaway rate, I'm not sure if it's the same as SMRPG, like being 50%, but it's pretty easy to run away, so it's not a huge deal if you get an encounter. It just looks ugly. But yeah, going back to the mini games, there's stuff like the Yoshi races are in this game. The Tadpole Pond like music stuff is in this game. There's a mini game where you can take out enemies as they like go across like a field and all that. It's like a shooting gallery type mini game. And you'll see more in like in the actual run itself. But yeah, there's just so much content in this game. It's really well made for a Touhou fan game. Anyways, we're fighting Clown Feast now. This is a pretty easy boss. I got very lucky there. Can collect both Fear and Recoil, which skipped her turn. Now we're going in here and we get trapped inside. The prankster fairies are at it again. And Luna Child fell down. Oh, funny. So this will be getting the lifting mitts, which is the next supplementary overworld item, which allows you to pick up those blue Yin orbs and place them on top of things. Also used to create platforms in certain spots, open up more areas of the game. And then you have to walk out in order to get the next boundary shard and progress with the game. Yeah. What else to talk about? In terms of marathon safety, the only fight that has a chance of going like super duper wrong and wasting a lot of time will be the final fight. There's definitely some tough fights in this run, but it usually shouldn't result in a game over as long as I do any amount of like basic blocking. It doesn't have to be perfect blocks, like half blocks for any fight will be okay. And for certain status ailments that land, I usually have it like figured out that even if they do land, it'll be okay. So yeah, very marathon safe run. All right, next we're going up to my least favorite part of the game, which will be the Haunted Mansion, which will be like the sunken ship equivalent from Super Mario RPG. But first we gotta talk to this Tanuki. Tanuki what? That Tanuki gave us the Holy Water, which is an item actually in the original SMRPG. A lot of people don't know that, the Holy Water, because it's kind of unused in the speedrun. And that'll be used on the Ghost Boss that's coming up next. Spooky area. So the Ruined Mansion, okay, you can see me pause here. It's because the minigame that's coming up next is my least favorite part of the game. So for this, much like in the original Super Mario RPG, there's a bunch of like small mini games you can play, some like puzzles that give you hints about what the solution is to the sunken ship, which we all know is Pearl's aquarium in the original. But in this game, it's actually randomized. So whenever you're supposed to be able to get hints for the puzzle by doing the mini games, but if you just hit these ghosts with the switch, it actually tells you the solution. And what you have to input is similar to the Tadpole Pond mini game from the original game. But anyways, the reason I'm so slow here is because I didn't have out my cheat device, my calculator, to write down the order in which I have to input the notes for the puzzle. It was just this huge mess. I think I ended up like having to pause, like tab outside the game, which pauses the game, which kind of makes this a little bit annoying to run. Whenever you like click out of the game, it loses focus and the game just pauses. So my IGT is a little bit better here than it should be because of having to click out and write down the solution to the randomly generated puzzle. But anyways, this whole thing is a mess. You only have to hit the notes once too, because they all emit like different sounds, but I have to hit it like multiple times in order to get the dialogue box that tells you what the sound is, because I'm bad. It's just this is a huge mess. But anyways, I got past it. If you input a note wrong, you have to do the entire puzzle over again, and you can't like exit out of it early, so you have to like input wrong notes to try again. It's just this huge mess. For an actual like marathon run, I would have to be pretty focused and, you know, be able to like write it down or bring my calculator or something. My like actual physical calculator to like input the number sequence. But anyways, it's time for the next boss fight. This song's a jam. This fight's kind of hard because the Prism River Sisters open up with status effects, and you have to use an audio cue in order to block them. If it hits, it's not the end of the world. I actually do manage to block both of them there, which is pretty good. I think. Yeah. And here I'm using a Holy Water, which does a lot of damage to these ghost enemies, especially if fear lands, right? Because even items do more damage if fear is inflicted, much like in the original Super Mario RPG. And the strategy for this fight is just to use Koishi Ancestors. They're very resistant to physical attacks, so you basically have to use special attacks. And I think they're weak to dark. Actually, no, I don't think they're weak to dark. I think just Koishi just does a lot of damage. But yeah, you have to use special moves, and Koishi, again, has the only AoE attack move, so you just use Koishi for the whole fight. So even though I completely blundered that the puzzle beforehand, that was a very good fight in terms of fear landing and being able to block the status effects. And this chest is another speedy bracelet. Speed boosting items are pretty important in this game, especially once you get access to Yukari, which is a slow character, but does a lot of damage, so you just end up giving her a lot of speed boosting items to make up for that. So you know how in SMRPG, like halfway through the game, you have to go talk to Frog Fuchsias in order to advance through the game? This is kind of what's happening here. This is the dialogue talking sequence of the run, where you just gotta talk to a few NPCs in order to be able to make progression with the game. This would be a great time for donations. But yeah. In terms of the story, there was like you have to talk to Nod's room, which tells you to go to the cliff, and you talk to Hina, that tells you there was an earthquake and you can't pass this cliff. If only you had some stepping stones, you gotta talk to Bonky, who agrees to be your stepping stone. And then you go back to the cliff area, Yokai Mountain Cliff. And you can proceed with the dungeon. This area is kind of like a mix between Rose Way and Bean Valley, I believe, from the original SMRPG. The enemies here are very dangerous. I think I dropped a safety save beforehand. If you get a random encounter here and you're unable to run, it's very easy to party wipe. That being said, it's kind of hard to get an encounter to begin with, so... I'm usually always fine here. Movement's looking a little bit shaky there. But yeah, kind of like this area. Got some cool movement. Don't want to fall down here. For some of the tougher platforming, we'll be dropping a safety save, but that one's pretty easy. And coming up next will be the Climb on Bonky, which is like the Troopa Climb from SMRPG. You want to go somewhat fast here in order to get a very essential item for the run, which is the red cape. And I'm actually started using recently in the route. Before I would try and go very, very fast, which will give you 5 frog gems, kind of like in the original SMRPG if you repeat the minigame. And the red cape is an important item because, one, it boosts your critical hit rate. And like I said, any small boost in critical stat will result in a large increase of actual critical hits. And also it makes you immune to fear. And that's important because there'll be certain fights against enemies where Reimu will be berserked or another character will be berserked. And the boss will use Sandstorm or other fear-inducing moves, and you'll be unable to block it. So by making yourself immune to fear, you're okay to just use Stimulant without worry about your damage being decreased. But now we're in the snow area. Snow area is pretty cool. It's got the sliding ice type puzzle. This is an unfortunate counter here. It's the second one of the run, second, third one. I believe in the story of the game, we're supposed to go talk to Kasen, the hermit that lives at the top of this mountain area. But the snow is not part of the plan. Turns out there's another Touhou behind it. This menu seems pretty bad. Hurry it up. Terrible. But yeah, it's another party switch. Reimu is back in the party. And she'll be dealing substantial physical damage to this next boss, which is Letty. Letty was also possessed by a boundary shard, which is causing her to inadvertently cause a lot of snow and ice to appear here. And in this fight, I completely bungle it. I'm using a new attack with Koishi, which is release the id or something like that. I'm supposed to still be using Ancestors for the fear chance. But because I switched party members, I put Koishi in a different slot. I think the way it works is that it remembers the slot of whatever ability the character that was in that slot last had, you know? And then I accidentally do it again. Like, I'm not supposed to be using it. This move does have a chance of inflicting Mesmerize, I believe, which passes the character's turn, kind of like Recoil, but what I want to do is inflict fear. But it doesn't matter because I'm getting a ton of critical hits anyways and dealing a lot of damage. Letty is kind of supposed to be like Johnny, in that she just has a lot of defense and a fair amount of hit points. But it's not worth using super jumps on Letty, so you kind of just have to attack with Reimu because Letty's weak to Holy and hope for critical hits. And ideally, Fear also lands as well, but that fight was not good at all because yeah, I was not using Ancestors. Anyways, we made it to Kasen's hut. Here we get another lore update. Kazuzu, we saw earlier, is speaking with Kasen. I think she's inquiring about the boundary shards. And who shows up? Our very own Yukari Yakumo, who knows a lot about boundaries. You know anything about the Touhou lore. And because we have an open slot in our party, you can only have up to 6 characters total. There are obviously 3 characters in battle. Yukari will join automatically. Part of the routing behind the speedrun is to make sure you have that empty slot, because there's actually another character beginning later on that I wish I could recruit early, but I can't, so that Yukari joins automatically there, because I'll need her for the next boss fight. In terms of optional characters joining, in terms of like their stat distribution, because you can pick character stats and all that, right? When a character joins later on, their stat level ups are like randomly distributed, like their level up bonus randomly distributed. So sometimes you'll get like a low special attack Yukari, which will cause you to do a little bit less damage. So that's a little bit annoying to deal with, because yeah, you won't have like fixed stats like you will in the original SMRPG. It will vary a little bit for every character except for Reimo and I think Koichi, just based on how late they join. Anyways, that was another bomb. Take out some of these cats. In terms of the store, Yukari wanted us to go to here, which is Mayuhiga, which is I think is Chen's house. And she wanted us to get a very important item, which is the Dream Pillow. And the Dream Pillow allows us to enter the Dream World very shortly here. I don't know why I paused there. But first we gotta drop by Korindo to buy an item from Renosuke, which is the Lucky Card, item from Wild Arms and probably a few other games. Lucky Card just causes you to gain double EXP whenever you finish the battle. It is very good for the speedrun. Like I said, some certain abilities are very important. For that Letty fight, we actually use Kappa Wave, which I think is an ability I brought up earlier on accident. Kappa Wave is a Geno Boost equivalent, increases both attack and defense. And that's one of the reasons why Nitori is so important, so you can use Kappa Wave often. Alright, so now we're in the Dream World. We boot Raisin out of the party. We didn't even use her, right? We got her for her equipment and then got her out of here. You're forced to take Doremi, who's the person that lets us navigate the Dream World, because you're trying to keep an eye on things. But Doremi will not actually be used. She's a pretty bad character. She has a lot of like sleep moves. She has an AoE holy attack, which is kind of decent, but her main downside is that she's just very slow. So currently I just cannot find a use for Doremi in the run. So the Dream World is like Star Hill from Super Mario RPG. You can talk to these like small pink orbs that you'll see around here, in order to learn like people's dreams and wishes and all that. It's pretty cute. And also we now have the another overworld supplementary item, which is the Attraction. Attraction is like the hook shot, very good for the speedrun. Allows you to hook onto most things, which is faster than just walking. So being able to line up your attraction shots and not like whiff them is a pretty important part to going fast. Now we're in the train station of the Dream World, obviously. Talking to Renko, who just, gives us a boundary shard for free, no boss fight, much like in the real SMRPG. And Star Hill, you just get a free star piece. I think we also got a frog gem in there. But unlike the original SMRPG, we have to do a small mini-game before we're able to leave. We have to protect Maribel, which I think is someone that wandered into the Dream World on accident. Her and Yukari seem to share a very special connection. For this minigame, you just take out the fairies and progress to the next screen. I think I have a very good minigame here, right? I don't think I missed a single shot. I normally miss like 2 or 3 shots whenever I do this. I'm surprised this went so well, considering all the overworld mistakes so far. Switch to Attraction there, because we'll need to escape as well. We have a very small fight here versus these Dream Fairies. This will be the last time that Koishi is really used in the run. I think she's used for the next fight, but she doesn't really do too much. Because at this point we'll have access to better AoE magic attacks, so Ancestors, even though it's very nice that it inflicts fear, it just doesn't really have the damage needed to justify Koishi staying in the party. Alright, now we've saved Maribel, gotten the boundary shard, we can now leave. And we said goodbye to Remy, who, yeah, will not be used ever again in any capacity. Instead, we'll be going to the Scarlet Devil Mansion, getting a very important character, Sakia. I talked a little bit how, you know, level up stats will vary a little bit, or join up stats will vary a little bit because you can't pick characters' level ups. And Sakia's special attack is a very important thing, because Sakia will be attacking primarily with just one move, which is Soul Sculpture, a very, very strong wind elemental move, which will be used on a lot of bosses. Like, unless a boss is specifically weak to a different element, or they have a lot of special defense, Soul Sculpture is your go-to move for dealing damage for the rest of the run. Now we're going to Yokai Mountain proper, and now we're dealing with the Tengu. We just talked to Momiji, who doesn't want us to enter the mountain, and is instead sending her minions to search for us. This is like the stealth portion of the run. However, you can take out the guards and it's fine. This is a very critical portion of the run because you cannot get caught no matter what. If you get caught, not only is the battle inescapable, but if you get caught at all, then you'll have a fight versus Momiji where she is powered up. And not only that, she will not give you an important item, which is the Tengu attire, which is an armor that increases speed. So, in a real run, I'll probably be dropping a lot of safety saves to make sure I don't get caught. That being said, you know, they do always move in the same pattern, so it's not too hard to deal with. So yeah, in the lore, we like snuck up on Momiji by not getting caught, so this fight's actually very easy. That being said, it still gives the same amount of experience as if we had fought the powered up Momiji. So in this fight, I choose to use the lucky card for double EXP in order to get a nice EXP increase, and more importantly, get access to Yukari's next special move, which is her train move, which is the next very strong AoE attack. And you can see there Momiji also dropped the Tengu attire. Speed boosting equipment is very important in this run, as I've kind of already mentioned before. Not just for the ability to go before, you know, bosses and enemies and things like that, but because there is a mechanic in this game. Oh, this is the Land's End minigame of the platforms, but you can kind of cheese it by using attraction. Boosting your speed a lot is also important for another reason I'll get to when it actually comes up. Anyways, this is Yokai Mountain. Aya doesn't want us to come in, we're gonna come in anyways. This is the hardest platforming of the run by far. You're supposed to hit a switch at the bottom of the mountain, which creates platforms. Oh, there I accidentally load my save when I meant to drop a save. But these jumps are very tight. You can see there I fall off trying to align myself. Whenever you load the game, there's a small amount of lag, which kind of makes it annoying too. You can kind of get into an infinite. This is another situation where you really don't want to get an encounter either, because the Crow Tengu are very fast and will get turns before you do. And now we're coming to the next boss fight, which will be Aya. Aya is one of the harder bosses in the run. She is weak to Holy, but you're not doing a crazy amount of damage like you are to other bosses. And she also has some very strong moves, so you can't reliably use Berserk Reimu to deal a lot of damage. This is one of the boss fights I'm probably the least happy with in terms of the routing behind it, because it's just not a very good clear-cut strategy for how to go fast. Here I'm using a Kappa Wave on Yukari to boost her, mostly her attack, and then we do the train to take out the Crow Tengu, which does barely enough damage. And then you just kind of go to town on Aya here. So Yukari. Now Koishi's out of the party forever, and you'll be seeing a lot of Yukari. She has not only her train move, which is a good AoE damage attack, but she has her Parasol move. The Parasol move does a lot of damage for a special attack. I think I mentioned Sakia's Soul Sculpture earlier, which we're going to see a little bit later, but the Parasol is no joke. Its only real downside is that it's dark elemental, and a lot of bosses do end up kind of resisting dark. But that said, it does a lot of damage whenever you do actually choose to use it. This fight ends up going okay. I used her illusionary dominance move, which is another attack where if you just block it at all, you take 0 damage. But otherwise, it's basically an instant defeat on the character. And now we're going to the Nimbus Land equivalent, which is the sky, heaven. These little there's no vines like in SMRPG, but you have these tornado things. But honestly, it's kind of just as annoying to deal with these things as it is to deal with the vines in SMRPG. At least you don't have to worry about climbing them quickly. The movement's very straightforward. Before we actually go to heaven, they'll be going a quick drop into the netherworld to get this, talk to this ghost that gives us a magic crystal, which is an item that just will restore your MP for as long as it doesn't break. And in this game, you get 10 uses before it breaks, so that ends up being the main thing used from the inventory to restore a character's SP. So you have sufficient SP going to bosses. This is, I believe, the last bomb of the run. Similar strategy here. So what else to talk about in general for this game? If you're a fan of like either SMRPG or Touhou, or both, or neither, honestly, because it's a good game, you'll really enjoy this game. Again, you shouldn't be taken off by the art style. In terms of gameplay, this is one of the best Touhou fan games I've ever played. You don't even know anything about the Touhou lore. Like, yeah, it would help a little bit, but this game can definitely stand on its own in terms of gameplay. And in terms of like a speedrun, as you can probably tell, there's almost no downtime whatsoever. And you just hold a button to skip the text, so everything is happening very fast. In terms of optimization, I suspect this game can go down by another 5 minutes, even with just this route. Just because of like how much there is to optimize in terms of like the movement, the boss fights, etc. Like there's so much active gameplay in this game that if you really practiced and all that, you could definitely get it down pretty low. Anyways, we're fighting Iku, who also has gone crazy from something, I think. Iku is actually weak to dark, and like I mentioned, Yukari's Parasol is Darkness Elemental, so you're doing a lot of damage here. So much so it's not even worth using the other characters. Iku has no chance of defeating any character. I did a lot of damage to Yukari here. I end up figuring out after the run that I got a very high special attack Yukari upon join up. Because there's a chance you don't 3-round that boss and you have to do like a small physical attack with Reimu. But there was no issues there. Here I'm doing a small menu just to switch to the red cape. And this is the first time it really comes into play. So it's we're fighting Kokoro yet again, recurring boss. The eternal battle between Reimu and Kokoro. And Kokoro has a lot of fear-inducing moves. And another thing worth mentioning about Kokoro is that she has very high special defense. So high, in fact, that you basically always want to fight her with physical attacks. And so you can see there she uses Sandstorm, which can inflict fear, and Darkness, which you can see there also can inflict fear. But because Reimu has the red cape, we don't have to worry about that at all. Yeah, she tries to use fear there. She used 3 fear-inducing moves in a row. But thanks to the power of the red cape, you don't have to worry about Reimu having fear inflicted. And yeah, it's just only worth using Reimu for this fight because, again, she's only really weak to physical, and she's weak to holy, so you just let Reimu go to town with the talisman. No critical hits happen in this fight, but it's pretty common to get at least 1 critical because I have 2 critical hit increasing items equipped. It just wasn't meant to be in this fight. But I think it was actually the first time when I came up with this strat, I did not see at least 1 critical hit there. So that was kind of unusual. Anyways, we got Boundary Shard from her, and we also see another Black Star emerge and also take her away. What could that Black Star be up to? You'll find out in terms of the story soon if you keep watching. That was an accident, I didn't mean to go on that tornado. So we'll be dropping down here where the hot springs would be in SMRPG in order to get another incredibly important item from that box next to Hayate. I think is that Touhou's name. which is the Tengu Sandals. The Tengu Sandals is an item that increases agility by 20, compared to the Speedy Bracelet, which increases it by 10. Yeah, extremely important item. Talk to that Kappa to get Kappa's Medicine, which is like an elixir, traditional Final Fantasy games. And also, you're buying the status effect bomb items I referenced earlier. Buying 8 Rage Bombs and 2 Fear Bombs. And the Rage Bomb is an incredibly important item on one boss, coming up kind of soon, and then the final boss. And the Fear Bomb is mostly just used on enemies where you kind of like have a free turn, or they're just like 100% vulnerable to fear, which is not too many actually. Alright, we're going back to the human village here to do a detour shopping trip, mostly to buy the Lethal Purification Rod, which is an incredibly good item for Reimu. So I talked a lot about the Talisman before, right? About why you want to use it because it's holy elemental. The Lethal Purification Rod is non-elemental, but it just does a lot of damage. And most importantly, it has a very fast attack animation. And a lot of the next, like, 20 minutes or so of the run will just be berserking Reimu and having her go to town with the Lethal Purification Rod. Or using Sakia, who will be coming up right now in her Soul Sculpture move. So we'll be saying goodbye to Yukari for a little bit. So similar to other boss fights here, I'll be berserking Reimu, boosting her attack with Kappa Wave, which will also boost her defense. And remember, I can't block while berserked. So it's a very powerful combination here. And even though Kasume, this next boss, is weak to Holy, you still actually do more damage with the Lethal Purification Rod just because of its higher base attack stat. Anyways, we went back to the shrine. She was guarding the well for some reason. They go Frog Gem here, and we're actually going to be doing an optional fight versus Generic Guard, I believe is the name of this. And this is the first time we're really using Sakia. You might just see there I did a 9999 damage to that Generic Guard. That is in fact the Gina World equivalent from Super Mario RPG. That is Magic Star Sword. That's one of the many reasons why Sakia is so good. If you only come in during the last, like, 30-40 minutes of the run, you think Sakia is the best character because of how much she's going to be used coming up. So for this fight is versus Parse. She's all about jealousy. She wants to get jealous to power her up. And she's 100% vulnerable to rage, so we use a rage bomb in order to make it so she can only do physical attacks. And that's important because this boss is supposed to be the Eurydivic equivalent. If you let the fight go on for too long, she will split herself in two. And unlike in the original game or the remake, you can't tell the two apart, the clone or the real one, so it becomes very hard to win the fight. Plus, she has a lot of like slow attack animations, like she has the Water Blast equivalent and things like that, so it's very fortunate that she's 100% vulnerable to rage, even though Reimu in that fight can't block the attacks. But yeah, this is also like Land's End. You gotta go down the whirlpools. And we're fighting Kasume yet again. Itori now has access to Giant Water Bomb Swing, I think is the name of the move, which is another good AoE attack move. You're just using this here because you don't have Yukari in the party. You need some form of AoE damage to progress. Yeah, Kasumi is supposed to be like the Shogun equivalent here. It's pretty cute. You can even jump on her head on the overworld to get a frog gem, much like you can jump on the Shoguns in the real SMRPG to get frog coins. But yeah, now we're making our way into the underworld depths. This area is kind of like the volcano from SMRPG. Not this one particular area, but like the area we'll be going to soon after. And now we're in the Palace of the Earth Spirits, I believe. This is kind of like Monstro Town. If you talk to that rabbit you saw there briefly in the corner, that's the character that gives you the super suit and all that if you do 100 super jumps, but yeah, won't be doing that in this run. I talked to Satori, that gave us some dynamite. The story here is that we have to go save Utsuho, who is trapped beneath, and we use the bomb to blow it up. And now we're in the pipe vault equivalent from SMRPG. This area is kind of cute because, you know, it's mostly trying to be like 2D, much like the original Pipe Vault. Here I'm kind of like going a little bit out of bounds. This game has some like funky out of bounds you could probably do to like skip stuff, but I just banned it because I think the run would be more interesting if it ran without out of bounds and trying to figure that all out. But it's definitely possible. And also in this area you can't fire the talisman to take out enemies. So you do have to dodge all of them, but it's not really that big of a deal. So after that short sequence, it's time to fight Utsuho. First, just restoring my SP in the menu. Utsuho is the Axum Rangers equivalent. You mostly see in the second phase of the fight. Also here I'm using the Power Blast equivalent, the total power up in order to boost the attack stat of all my characters. Just because there's no other really good way to do this fight. And I'm using the Cursed Decoy doll I mentioned earlier that will allow us to tank between 1 or 2 hits usually. That's because this move that Touhou uses right here, that charge up move, you don't know when she's going to release the charge. In fact, she can even charge it all the way up and then go back down again, and it makes it very hard to block. And because you have a Berserk Reimu here, you have no idea what the block timing is going to be. Very sneaky move. So that's why the Cursed Decoy doll is used there. And yeah, this is Saki using Soul Sculpture. That move normally has a very loud attack sound as well. That's the file I lowered the volume of that I mentioned earlier. Because yeah, you'll be hearing a lot of Soul Sculpture moving forward. And yeah, right now Touhou is charging up the Shock Cannon. Hell Shock Cannon, I believe is the name of it, which is like the Breaker Beam from SMRPG. But you'll always take her out before she fires it. Honestly, it doesn't even do that much damage compared to the Breaker Beam in SMRPG. You can definitely tank it and still be okay. So it's not a huge concern if you are somehow unable to do the proper timings to take out the boss. The Touhou is also kind enough to heal you after the fight for a small price. But yeah, now we're in the volcano proper here. A lot of the rooms in this area are references to rooms in the original SMRPG. Like this room right here. There's even a frog gem, frog coin, in the same area would be in the original SMRPG. Anyways, the boundary star got stolen, much like how the Axum Rangers steal the star piece from Zardragon. And it's Kazuzu at it again. You can actually catch Kazuzu here, and she gives you some items that you can sell for more money, but it's not really that important. That's just yet another nice touch in the game. Yeah, Kazuzu's trying to steal the boundary shard because she wants the power for herself. She's calling a taxi, a Sukigora? Sukigomo? I wrote this down. It's a spider Touhou. And this is supposed to be the Koopa fight, the Bowser fight, the very start of SMRPG equivalent. Because right now Kazuzu is actually invincible. Her and her 2 books are completely invincible, so you have to attack the chain link in the back, which is Yamame. Now, Yamame is weak to wind, so we're using Soul Sculpture, but we're also using another move, which is called Sakia's World, one of the best moves in the game, which is a move that just lets you get 2 turns. That's all it does. It costs a lot of MP, so much MP that I'm actually using a full MP restoral item here, so I can do it again. And you just take out Yamame entirely with Soul Sculpture here because it's not even worth using the other characters because of the wind weakness. And yeah, it kind of takes a little bit to watch the Sakia's World animation, but it's definitely worth it in a lot of situations. It kind of reminds me of the Quick ability in FFT, you know, the ability to get another turn. You don't want to do it because the act of watching an animation in order to see the quick turn is a little bit slow, but there's just certain situations where just having 2 turns in a row is too incredibly powerful that you can't get around using it. Oh yeah, much like in the original SMRPG, the direction in which you enter the overworld from matters in order to get to like the front and the back of an area. Next we're going to be fighting Yoshiko, which is a fight you can actually do at the very start of the game. But you're too weak to actually win the fight. Yoshika is guarding the entrance to Saiken, I believe. She works for the the Jiangxi, I believe. This is kind of a tough fight to route. She's weak to water, but not wind. And she can summon these ghosts. And if you let the fight go on for too long, she'll eat the ghosts and recover health. So you kind of have to win on this turn. Otherwise, it gets kind of annoying. Also, whether or not she summons the ghost is random. And she can inflict fear, but I have the red cape on Sakia now to make sure that doesn't happen. And she's kind of the primary damage dealer there. Also, funnily enough, you can escape from that fight, even though because it's not like truly a boss fight. Because again, you can access it early, and if you realize it's too strong, you should be able to run away. Something I didn't mention about Yukari as well is that Yukari actually has a 50% chance to be asleep when the fight starts, if it's a random encounter, but not a boss fight. Because that boss fight right there versus Yoshika is flagged as a random encounter, I used to use Yukari for that fight, but the chance of her being asleep was too annoying to deal with. So it's a good thing she got ratted out there. There is actually an item you can get for Yukari that makes it so she'll never be asleep, but it was not worth getting. Anyways, we're in the next dungeon, Saiken, I believe is the name of it. This is a reference to a Touhou game I have not played, although there are a lot of Touhou games I have not played. Maybe I'll do an actual playthrough of most of the main series that this game in particular covers, so I can know the true lore. This is kind of like a puzzle dungeon. You have to hit different switches to open different paths, and when one switch is pressed down, it unpresses the other two. So you kind of have to backtrack and create different bridges to progress through the dungeon. It's pretty cool. If you hit the switches in a certain order, you can like backtrack for items and all that. But for the speedrun, we're just taking the fastest possible path. The items I'm getting are mostly revival potions, as per usual. Alright. And now we'll be going to a very unique fight coming up next. Will be the fight versus Miko, the Saint. Quick menu here. You kind of just menu specifically for this boss fight because it is so unique. I'll be putting the Reassurance Bracelet on Saki, which I don't think is an item I mentioned. The Reassurance Bracelet is the safety ring. That's why I did that optional fight versus the generic guard earlier, was just for the safety ring. Now, you can technically block all status ailments in this game by being really good at the timing, but it's too risky currently in the run. So I get the safety ring to make it so you don't have to worry about it in some fights. So the Miko fight is actually the Exor fight. First, you have to take her out because she's channeling saintly energy into the other two, and then the other two act as guards for Miko, so you have to like take out one of the guards, or like taking out one of the eyes. And as you might imagine, when you take out one of the guards, Miko is completely vulnerable to everything, including Magic Star Sword, Gina Whirl. She's able to do 999 damage there and instantly win the fight. Very cool reference there. I'm glad the creator put in an Exor equivalent boss. It was so cool when I found that in the routing process, because like, you know what? This boss reminds me a lot of Exor. I wonder if you can just Gina Whirl her. And sure enough, you can. And much like the actual Exor, it's a great thing you can do that, because that fight is very, very hard if you're trying to do it legitimately. Quick visit to medicine here for a heal, because she's like just a free heal person. And we also bought some AoE heals, which will come into play a little bit later. Last frog gem usage of the run by another total power-up, which is like Power Blast again. And a few holy waters will be coming up in one of the next fights. At this point, we have all the boundary shards. We can repair the boundary, but oh no, they just got stolen. Oh no. The person we keep talking to, Ron, it's like, you know, a servant of Yukari. She's helping us fix the boundary and, you know, resolve the incident and all that. But yeah, our boundary shards got stolen by Saija, and we have to chase her around the human village. This is, you know, supposed to be a reference to Krako that stole Mala's frog coin at the very start of SMRPG and stuff like that. Get to do some cool attractions here. You have to dodge the dolls. I mean, this is like a fun little sequence. I will say, the game doesn't have any like major skips. You know how the original SMRPG has like max skip and things like that. Because I'm choosing not to explore the out of bounds because it seems kind of random to get to work, and I just don't even want to think about it. So this game is done like, you know, legitimately in terms of like story progression and all that, with only developer intent skips. Anyways, we found Saija. This is another bodyguard fight. If I were to attack Saija, the bodyguards, the dolls would take the hit. But they are considered weak to holy water, so you just use the holy water there to take them out. This is a very unfortunate fight. The only thing that can really go wrong in this fight is that Reimu gets feared, because the other two are vulnerable. And I was bad at blocking, so I had to spend a turn restoring Reimu's fear in order to do enough damage. That heal there is scripted, much like in the Kraka 1 fights from RPG, where he has a scripted heal. Kind of a key reference. Also, Saija is using the hammers, like the Hammer Bros in the original game. Just pretty cute all around. Here I'm using Sakia's Whirl to get 2 turns. This is not normally how it goes, but I'm doing that in order to skip Saija's turns after, because she can do some slow stuff. At this point, you probably noticed that certain bosses are getting 2 turns, and that's just a mechanic of the game. In fact, actually, no. There's something I also forgot to mention as well. Remember how I mentioned, as you can probably tell here too, this is the Booster Hill equivalent. Yeah, instead of, you know, chasing Peach up the hill, you have to fire the shots. Anyways, you get the idea here of the minigame. Something very important I forgot to mention in terms of speed boosting items. I said it would be important, right? And I would point it out when it came up. I didn't actually do that. If you go over 55 agility in this game, you will start to get 1.5 times as many turns, which means that like every other round of attacks, you'll get like an extra turn with a character. So having a lot of speed boosting items on one character in particular will be very important for maximizing the amount of turns you have compared to the enemy. And that's mostly used here on Reimu and then later on Sakia to maximize their damage output while reducing the amount of turns, not only from the bosses, but also your own party members, because oftentimes your own party members will not be as powerful as whatever character you're boosting the agility of. But anyways, this minigame, this one is important. I have to hit Saija at least 60 times, and she will give us the Meteorite Badge. The Meteorite Badge is like the Gem of Beryllium, it's like the Troopa Pin, and that's just an automatic attack increase forever, as long as the fight lasts. But the Meteorite Badge does not have the associated downside of also making you more vulnerable to enemy attacks. It's just you get an attack increase yourself, and that's it. And we see another black star here that's possessing Saija. The 3 black stars become very important soon in terms of the story. Here I'm getting lost in the overworld, as per usual. Return to Alice to actually repair our cursed decoy doll, which we saw during the Touhou fight, which was the thing that let us take a hit. Alice will always offer to repair the doll whenever it's broken for a small fee. That's the only time we actually go out of our way to repair it. It's because we're going to need it for the final fight in the game. And now we're doing this small sequence in the Kappa's bath. In the story, I think it's Nazrin that tells us to go investigate this area and also find out what the Black Stars are up to. Why they keep showing up as often as they do. And there they are. Quick menu here, though. This will be the last time Reimu is used in the party. The lethal purification berserk strats are no longer in play. And so we'll actually be putting Yukari back in, because a few bosses coming up will be vulnerable to her parasol move, weak to dark. So we'll be giving Yukari a lot of special attack boosting items. So currently, Sakia has a lot of speed boosting items. She gets 2 turns. Nitori is still in the support utility role. And the Black Stars, turns out they were Hikashia all along. 3 different forms of Hikashia. Oh, this fight's really cool too. So, Yoshi the Giant Toad, this boss, is always supposed to eat the character in the first slot on his first turn, which is supposed to be Reimu, but because it's a New Game Plus, you can take Reimu out of the party, and instead I put Saki in the top slot, and I use her perfect mate ability, which is like a counter, in order to counter the act of getting eaten. So I'm able to actually have all 3 characters for this fight, when normally you're supposed to only have 2. I also used a Fear Bomb with Itori. It's a 50-50 whether or not it lands. It just saves like maybe 5 or 10 seconds if you do get an early fear. But other than that, it's a pretty straightforward fight. Yoshi Giant Toad's weak to dark. Use the Parasol. And in that lore update, we learned that Hikashi is actually the true perpetrator behind the incidents. And what you're supposed to do here is you're supposed to go talk to Nazrin, supposed to go talk to another NPC, learn all about the lore, and how you're going to go crash into the other world, because right now it's sealed off. That's where Hikashi is located. You're supposed to go crash into the other world with the Palanquin ship, but right now you don't have the key for the ship because it was stolen by Saiken of the Jiangxi. So we're actually going to go do this dungeon, which you can access very early on, but there's no boss at the end of it. But at this point, there finally is a boss. So we're gonna go get the engine key from Saiken so we can go activate the Palanquin ship, so we can go attack Hikashi and resolve the incident. And there I get an encounter because I'm bad. These enemies are a little bit scary. Also, you can see Yukari was asleep in that battle like I mentioned earlier. So that's one less chance to run away. This dungeon I don't think is a reference to anything in particular compared to the original game. A lot of very similar looking rooms. Lost in the menu here. All I have to do is just heal to full, restore my SP. That's another cool fight. Here I'm using Sakia's time stop ability, and then I'm going to use the guaranteed firebomb drop that we got from Parse. This is another bodyguard fight, but while time is stopped, the bodyguard effect does not activate. So I'm able to take out the minions with an AoE item move. It's kind of a shame there's actually no way to easily get elemental bombs in this game. You have to like play some very slow mini games. Because in the original SMRPG, of course, fire bombs, ice bombs, rock candy play an extremely important role. In this game, it's basically just that one fire bomb you have that's used in this fight, and that's it. Oh yeah, I guess something I really haven't talked about at all is the freebie system, right? The freebie system is incredibly important in Super Mario RPG, at least in the original game. The freebie system is present in this game, but it's mostly just about freebieing, like the power blast, the total power-ups, the power-ups, things like that. Just save like maybe a few seconds on some fights. It's not really that important compared to the original SMRPG. Anyways, I kind of glossed over the boss fight. Saiken, once you take out the bodyguards, is weak to dark. I use Yukari's Tsukima move, which makes her invincible. It's kind of like, what's the Boat? The character from Paper Mario, the ghost party member. I think her name is just Bo, right? She has like a few invincibility granting moves. Yukari has those as well, her gap moves. Anyways, we got the engine key. This is the last shop in the game. We're selling a whole bunch of stuff we don't actually need in order to afford 2 weapons. One will be the random knife for Sakia, which is her best physical, or her best weapon, best viable weapon. Buying Shikigami Ran for Yukari, which boosts her special attack by 50. And we'll be buying as many revival potions as we can carry, which again cost a lot of money. And the revival potions will be needed for the final boss. The random knife, Sakia is mostly about her soul sculpture, right? Her special attack. But there are a few bosses that are resistant to special damage that you kind of have to have a decent physical move, which is why I bought a random knife. Did a quick story sequence there, talking to Ron, learning all about how to go fight Hikashia. Now we're talking to Ichirin. We gave the engine key over to Murasa, I believe is her name. They gave us the 4 wise monkeys, which I believe we stole from Saiken or something. That's a re-raise item, which does come up on the final boss. And now, we're doing this mini game. This mini game, I believe, is supposed to be the equivalent to the minecart mini game in terms of how it's presented, but it works much different. This mini game is much more random compared to all the other mini games in the run, all of which are just like fixed. But this one is cool because you have there's a very important item you can get from it. If you get lucky enough. You just have to take out all the fairies while also dodging the shots, and how many fairies that spawn I believe is random, their shot timing is random, and things like that. But I do manage to get a perfect minigame here. And even if you have a perfect minigame, after the minigame, Ichirin, like, the lore is that she like judges how well you did, and she gives you an arbitrary score. And sometimes she won't even give you the item even if you do it perfectly. But the item you get is another meteorite badge, which is an essential item for the late game. Because if I don't have a second meteorite badge, I have to use the gem of beryllium, which will cause my character to take increased damage. And there is another meteorite badge you can get afterwards, but it's a kind of tricky to get. So being able to get lucky on that minigame is like a huge relief, because that means I don't have to do the other minigame afterwards. Yeah, now we crash back into the other world from the beginning of the run. If you remember back that far. The red tile set and all that. This is supposed to be like the Abyss from Super Mario RPG. Like, you know, once you get past Bowser's Castle, before you actually get to Smithy's Factory, that like a weird otherworldly area. There's a few rooms here that are references to rooms in SMRPG. You can even like fall down in certain spots and get items, much like you can fall down the Abyss in SMRPG and get items. There, I don't know, that was terrible movement to get that encounter. But yeah, good amount of platforming here. Oh, something else I guess I forgot to mention, but you probably noticed at this point, is the fact that you can switch between the overworld items, like, you know, magic circle, attraction, switch, things like that, by holding down a button combination and cycling through. Just take a look at the input display whenever I have to like go between them to see how that works. And as we talk to Hikashia and she welcomes us into her castle, this is the Bowser's Castle equivalent. This is where the artwork of the game starts to go really ham. But basically, Hikashia is trying to take over the world and turn it into Hikashia Land. And if she succeeds, she's going to give everyone free t-shirts. I think that's the lore. Yeah. This is the dark room from Bowser's Castle. A lot of key references here to the original game. And look who's back. Kazuzu, who is kidnapped by a black star, Koku is kidnapped by a black star, and also Yomo, who's just also here for some reason, have all joined forces with Hikashia, brainwashed by her evil powers. And also Saija is there. Saija, much like Krako, shows up in Bowser's Castle to sell you some items there. She is a shop, but we just end up skipping it. And because we're in Bowser's Castle, of course, there's the infamous Bowser doors, the Hikashia doors here. These ones are not randomized. There's only 3 doors, too. There's a battle door, an action door, and a shooting door. This is the action door. Much like an SMRPG, you do not want to do the battle doors. They take a long time to do, both in that game and this game. So you're going to be doing the action door here and the shooting door. The action door, they're not as involved as in the original game. There's also no quiz, which is probably for the best, considering this game was machine translated, I believe, in order to get the glorious story that you're not able to witness because I'm holding down the text skip button. Some cool attractions here. So the items I'm mostly getting frog drinks, which is like the Kara Kara Cola from SMRPG, which is an AoE full heal and full SP restore that also restores all, or heals all status ailments. Also got another lucky card. I think I got a total power up. A few good items here I'll be using in the last few battles of the game. And this is the shooting minigame. This is the minigame I talked about earlier. So in order to get the second meteorite badge, assuming you don't get lucky on the minecart equivalent minigame, You have to have a perfect minigame here, which involves taking out every single fairy while not getting hit. You can see I got hit here. Had I not gotten that meteorite badge from the other minigame, the run would be... Like, it wouldn't be dead, but it would be kind of slow. In a marathon setting, I'd probably have some safer strats just in case I only had one meteorite badge and I had to use the gem of beryllium instead. But it's nice that I could, like, basically, like, zone out, because a third meteorite badge wouldn't be of any use for this run. But yeah, this is kind of a cute minigame. There's gonna be a boss at the end. So is there anything else I want to mention here about the run overall? Or why it'd be good for Limit Break? But yeah, it's mostly gameplay. You can skip past all the dialogue sequences by just holding a button. A lot of cool and varied strats, good platforming, based on a classic game everyone loves, of course. And, you know, uses Touhou characters. Everyone loves Touhou, right? If this game actually, you know, would get in, feel free to put it, like, you know, late at night or whatever, so it'd be, like, on a good time for Japan, because obviously, you know, Japan's really into Touhou and all that, compared to the West. Ah, the exit. Yeah, take out a giant eyeball enemy. Not really a big deal when I already had a meteorite badge. There's no randomness to that minigame either, so it's got to be good. And now we're in like the factory equivalent area of SMRPG. We have to take out the 3 subordinates of the final boss. The first is Dark Yomu. Go ahead and Geno Whirl the Phantom there. Vulnerable to instant death. And use a Fear Bomb. Yomu is 100% vulnerable to fear, which is very good, because this would be a very hard fight otherwise. So both Parasol and Soul Sculpture are doing a lot of damage here because of the increased damage from fear. And I'll also be using a second lucky card in this battle in order to get a lot of experience. This time it's just for stat increases and no more abilities I actually need. I've actually thought about skipping this lucky card because I'm not even sure how much the extra stats really matter, but I just choose to do it anyway just because, you know, I doubt it really hurts too much in terms of time. At this point, for characters I'm not using anymore, I'm just taking health increases, much like you would in the actual SMRPG. And look at that, Dark Yomu had the Sword of Hisa. Remember that? That's what Tenchi was looking for this entire time. That was her motivation. But now she's gonna stick on to help us out anyways, to resolve the incident. The Kazuzu fight's kind of interesting. She'll always spend her first 2 turns buffing books, but which book she buffs is random, so I have to pay some amount of attention here to notice which book she's buffing. And then I'm going to use Magic Star Sword to instantly take out a book, which will cause her to use her next turn to buff the other book. The reason you can't take out the books early is because she'll use that turn to buff herself instead. And there I have I said Perfect Mage just to counter, just in case, but Kazuzu can be taken out with 2 Parasols. You don't really need the other characters. I will mention you do have to take out the minions. Every single time I'm taking out the minions, it's because you have to. Otherwise, I would just go straight for the boss. Like, the fight won't end if you just take out the main boss. And here's something you probably didn't expect. Look who's back in the party. It's Tenchi. Tenchi was previously just used for, like, Sword of Kun recoil, and High Spirited Sword as, like, an attack boost. But now Tenchi has the Sword of Hiso, she'll be doing a lot of physical damage to the bosses. And who do we know that's vulnerable to physical damage? That's right, it's Kokoro. She's back again for the 4th time. Dark Kokoro. This is one of the hardest fights in the run. So you have to open up with 2 Geno Whirls, the timing of which is not easy, by the way. I've definitely mistimed Geno Whirl, and then the fight gets completely messy. Then Dark Kokoro opens up with a Yin Yang Orb that's always on Sakuya. And that's one of those attacks where, like, you only have to, like, half block it in order to take 0 damage. But if it hits, it is an instant kill on Sakuya. And then you use a Stimulant on Tenchi, which combined with Sword of Hisa is going to be doing a lot of physical damage to her. And Tenchi does have the red cape, so she can't be feared, but there's a lot of different things Kokoro can do here, including using her Yin Yang attack again on Tenchi, and because she's Berserk, she can't block it, right? And here's the random knife. Again, you basically just have to use physical attacks because she has so much special defense, which made this very hard to route. And there I just used that AoE heal I bought from Medicine early on because I can't use a frog drink because a frog drink would heal Tenchi's rage. And I need the rage active to deal more physical damage to Kokoro. That might end up being okay. But yeah. Dark Kokoro gives us Reimu's Yin Yang Orb, which is the thing she was looking at the very start of the game. Lore-wise, if you remember that, that was her initial motivation. We got the Mallet from Kazuzu, which is like a Gina boost, but you can use it from the menu. And now we're going to the very last boss of the game. Just did some final menuing to put the re-raise item on Nitori and replace the red cape with a Flan's Charm for more critical hit chance on Tenchi, or more damage. Both the Flan's Charm and red cape have similar amount of critical hit boosting capabilities. Anyways, the lore. Remember when Ryunosuke found a tablet? I'm not sure if I mentioned that. Kazuzu stole the tablet, and then we didn't get any more updates on that. Turns out Kazuzu and Hikashiya went together and found a mirror, and the mirror like sucked Hikashiya in and turned her evil. And now we're gonna fight Hikashiya's evil form. And she is the true perpetrator behind the incidents. The evil form of Hikashi is sucked into the mirror. And this is the final fight in the game. And this is, of course, the Smithy equivalent fight. The other three subordinates were like, the clerk, director, manager, things like that. So Hikashiya is the longest fight. It's also the most difficult fight. Both Phase 1 and Phase 2 are they're annoying for different reasons. So here, again, I can't really use my frog drinks. I just have to use the AoE heals. And I just use a combination of Soul Sculpture and physical attacks with Tenchi with her mighty Sword of Hisu to try and do a lot of damage. The way the Sword of Hisu works, by the way, is that it does its own elemental damage, which is meditation. And the way meditation works is that every single enemy in the entire game is weak to meditation. So it's kind of like you just have an unmitigatable physical attack that's going to be doing the same amount of damage to everything. It's like different than like a purely physical attack like Reimu's Lethal Purification Rod, which is non-elemental. It's hard to explain, but anyway, Sword of Hisu is really good. Anyways, Hikashiya can change forms, much like Smithy. This is the magic form of Hikashiya, where she's more vulnerable to physical attacks, but she does like more special attacks. Here I'm very lost in the menu. I don't know how to handle this. I eventually find a frog drink, which cures Tenchi's rage. I can pass the first phase. And now it's time for the very difficult second phase. Again, the artwork of this is quite unfortunate. If need be, I can replace the files without too much effort, if this is like the deal breaker. But I like to think that everyone would be so focused on the fact that this fight is so difficult, and the awesome music and things like that, to really pay too much attention. Anyways, I open up with Sakuya and her time stop ability, and I do Gina Whirl on the two planets, the Earth and the Moon. I know the Moon's not a planet. Which are like her two minions. This is a very technical fight. And then I keep using Sakuya's world here, and I use a Fragment of Life on Nitori to give her more lives, so she has more re-raise in case she falls. I put up the Cursed Decoy Doll so I can take the next attack. I fully heal with a Frog Drink. And then I use the almighty Rage Bomb. So Hikashi is 100% vulnerable to Rage, which is a very good thing. I don't know how this fight would be done otherwise. And the strategy behind this fight, remember when I said Nitori was extremely important? Nitori has a move I have not used at all so far throughout the entire run, which is Optical Camouflage, which makes her immune to physical attacks and lasts a very long time. So the way this strategy works is I keep putting Rage Bombs on Hikashiya, so she only uses physical attacks. And then I use Tenchi in the middle slot to do the main crux of the damage, which is the physical attacks. So Sakuya can sometimes stay alive and contribute damage, but Sakuya will eventually fall because there's no way for Sakuya and Tenchi to be able to tank Hikashiya's very strong physical attacks for a prolonged period of time. Because Hikashiya also has one of the only unblockable attacks in the game, which is the nature of Hakashi's attack cannot be truly grasped or whatever it is. So yeah, you can't block that. But you can be invincible to it with Nitori's optic camouflage. But at this point, we kind of have the main loop set up here, which is Nitori is invincible to physical, and you revive Tenchi, and you have the turn order set up in such a way that Tenchi gets a turn immediately after being revived, and you just keep chaining revivals here. The Hikashi Smash is the only thing that can actually damage Nitori while Hikashi is enraged. So you do have to like keep refreshing the rage bonds, you have to keep refreshing optic camouflage. You can perfect block the smash attack, but again, I think it's like 1 to 2 frames. You have to keep track of Nitori's health. I do have 2 re-raises on Nitori just in case. Yeah, like there, one just activated, right? I'm kind of getting off script a little bit. But it's a pretty cool fight, the way it works. And one of the donation incentive ideas I have for this game is to change which character is used in the center for the revival strat. I'm using Tenchi here because I think it is the best because her attack animation is very fast and she has good critical hit rate. But you can use Reimu here instead, it's not too much slower. Or you could use Yukari, and that one's very interesting because for the Yukari strategy, it would actually switch Hikashi over to her Yellowhead and use the Parasol because Yellowhead is weak to dark. But yeah, I feel like a bid war between the 3 characters in the center would be a pretty cool idea. Because, yeah, the final boss is so climactic. And I did in fact win here. And just like that, we boot out the evil... Oh, no, that's right, the good Hikashi was stuck in the mirror. We take out the evil Hikashia. Good Hikashi is here. The world is saved. The boundary is restored and the incident's resolved. Let's go. In terms of the actual run, I made a lot of stupid mistakes in this run. I could definitely get like a 153, 52, 51. And maybe with some better routing, get like a 150 or 149, but... I mean, the run was okay, and some like stupid overworld mistakes, I guess. But yeah, in terms of like submitting this game to RPG Limit Break, what else did I talk about? Donation stems, right? Yeah, I talked about the different character for the final boss. There's also a Kulex equivalent boss in this game, as you might imagine. Mima. I'll be offering that as a donation incentive. It's just a cool, like, optional fight. It even changes like the graphical style, much like the Kulex fight from SMRPG does. Also, this game is kind of like Dragon Quest, where after you beat the final boss, you have to go walk back, which is why timing is still going. You can go talk to all your Touhou friends as well, learn more about the lore. They congratulate you on completing the resolving the incident. Talk to all the party member friends you made along the way, and then the credits roll. This is probably where timing would stop for the purposes of Limit Break, but I do like to go all the way until the end of the credits for timing, much like the original SMRPG. Although I heard they changed the timing for the remake. What's up with that? Always time until the D. This is pretty cool. It shows you all the stats for your characters and all that during this ending sequence. It's kind of cool to read this stuff. And this is supposed to be like the parade equivalent, you know, where you see all the characters throughout your journey. Not quite as elaborate or grandiose as the original game or the remake, but it gets the job done. It's pretty cute. But yeah, made it through the post-commentary. It was a lot of talking. In fact, I don't think I ever took a break to stop talking. That's how much there is to talk about for this game. There's definitely a few spots where you can, you know, read off donations, but this is one of those games where there's just so much to talk about, so much to explain. Very active game. Nice points. 297 enemies shot. Yeah, there you go. 52 enemies defeated, which I think will be the same every time. Times retreated is a good stat, though. It's how many encounters you got. 16 safety saves. But yeah, I didn't even begin to cover everything that like goes into the run, all the references in this game. There's just so much to talk about. It's incredibly active. Even tells your IGT at the end. Tons of references to the original game. And I think this game would be a great fit for the marathon. Again, the art style, I can replace the files if need be, if that's a deal breaker. I can add the volume of the sounds. We can make a lot of things to actually make this happen, maybe if it's a deal breaker. But coming up on the end of the recording, so that's it for me. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this post-commentary. Hope you enjoyed the game. Play this game. It's really good. It's on the Switch. It's on the PS4. It's on PC. Buy it now. It's on Steam. Thanks for watching. Bye.